I'm the first one here. I'd like to be the first to wish you a happy, wonderful 50th anniversary. Around for half the time that you've been married, and I'll tell you, it's really been a pleasure to have you as grandparents. A lot of people don't even get to know their grandparents. I've been so lucky that I've had this time up until now to enjoy your company and cherish you as grandparents. We're going to go inside and see the room.
Hi, Charlie. He's getting a picture of it. Look at the picture, too.
No. Get us good now. My camera's
Be nice. Don't do that. I enjoy it.
Now here's where you stop and roll there. Yeah, boy. Well, I'm going to be smart.
There's a lot of brains in there. We're here for I'll follow you. Right. Hello. Okay, how you doing?
Okay. Looking good.
I've been looking forward to this. I wish this is gonna be. I wish Steve would be here. I don't know what's happening. Did you say? I guess Mom did.
Hi. How's my boy?
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Which door are we supposed to go in?
We have to go around to the side.
Okay.
Or the front.
Hi. Oh boy, this is going to be good.
It's gonna be nice to have, though.
I'm not sure. I'm not crazy. It's not too. Yeah. We're holding up traffic here.
There they are. Thank you.
Hi, your mother. I probably. Hi, Arlene and Jack. She says I have a 1-year-old mother.
Oh, I don't know.
So we'll start over.
No, I don't wear them.
You're kind of a creep.
Carol.
That is. Go and get your hair taken.
Now, Mother, we have to do this again.
Okay, just don't put it up too far.
Would you like it down lower?
Just a little. Not quite exactly.
If I run this thing on my finger.
How you doing over there?
See, I'm not
I get the tissue. Well, you can make something. Congratulations that you stood there all these years. Well, I don't know. Pardon me, girl.
Well, if it was anybody but you, I would, you know.
Oh, with my old gold dress. I figured that's what they did. Isn't that beautiful? He's playing your husband around, you I don't feel nice. I'm nervous.
I'm surprised. Did you hear?
Yeah.
Did you see the cake?
That's what she was looking at. I thought it would be golden line.
Well, it is gold. But it's your favorite color's lavender.
Someone had to take the top off.
I don't know. I wonder why they did that.
Oh, it might be right.
Man, I've waited 50 years for this.
Bill missed that one.
They think we punch. Stand over there with your bride and put your arm around her.
Can't get it around. Has to get back into talking.
I know how to teach it.
This bill.
I didn't think I would be.
We have sewn sheets. We can't give it to everybody. With the words.
It's just the chorus you're singing. What else to put this in?
You're telling me or what? You don't have to tell me.
You can't be that.
Where's May and Stella, I wonder? They didn't go. Let's go over here. Find the...
Hi, Sam.
How you doing? Hi, Frank.
Hi.
Pulling weeds. Pulling fingernails. Yeah.
I got you made it. He likes to see Mother's Day.
Oh yeah, just about every Tuesday or Wednesday and Sunday.
A couple weeks ago.
So they're on their way back. They'll be back this week sometime.
They're developing.
There's animated.
How did you do that?
Bill's sister Terry's husband.
Looks familiar.
What are you guys thinking of our house?
We live in Middletown beside them.
Hi there, good looking. How you doing?
Real good.
Maybe somebody can find the place.
I've got you already.
Got her mouth open to find the place for her to sit.
Your mouth open again.
I think just stay high.
I've got you Mary. You look so beautiful.
I need that color.
I keep getting in the way of that camera. I'm gonna get out.
Far away.
Got married.
Hey Mom, let's do it.
That's over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Troy, you can sit on our end, because there's not enough on the other end.
Troy, you should
I
sign
think
on.
so.
On the end.
So we're plunged together here.
I mean, there's papers.
Just never mind what's so secret about it. It's none of your business.
I'm glad you're all here to celebrate with Mother and Dad today. And before we eat, we're going to have a prayer by their grandson, Troy.
Dear Lord, we're all gathered here today, friends and relatives alike, to celebrate the 50th wedding anniversary of two very dear and special people in our lives. 50 years is a very long time to be married and a rarity these days, and that just makes these two special people extra special. Bless this food, Lord, that we are about to receive. Thank you for us all being able to be here, and thank you for my grandparents. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay. Now, I guess the table. Oh, she started.
wish it over the easy side ain't good. She says 5 feet.
Did we do it 5 feet?
Fred Irvin moved it. Our town kept it.
Yes, that's some of your folks that come down to Come on, let me get over here and get your hand in. Let me come back. Well, that's
Look at my own hand.
Wait a minute, not put any down. That's what the plate's there for.
You feed it to me. I hope she don't have this spot as arsenic.
I'll feed it to him.
Do it, Mother, do All right, Dad, it's your turn.
Well, I dropped and George 50 off mine. Do 7 more, maybe.
You should have.
Two should have.
And looking back over the last 50 years, I can't think of anything that we've ever done that deserve a celebration like this.
Oh.
You know, in this life, there's only one thing that's dearer than friends, and that's children. It's hard to talk, to think that we have so many good friends that would come out to help us to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. But if I don't live to ever celebrate another anniversary, I have no regrets. I have had everything that this world can offer a man. I've never been hungry. I've never had to go cold. I've never had to want for anything within reason that I couldn't have. I've had some tough times, yes, but I've had so many good times that they far outweigh the rough times. And I've had joy, peace of mind, and satisfaction. And I've had a world of friends along the road of life. And that's all that the world can ever give to a man. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out today and helping us celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. Thank you.
Oh, I can't.
Why are you doing?
We're ready. We'll do it again.
I can kiss him more than one time.
That's right. You go ahead and do it again.
Still wasn't ready. We all have sweet pictures. Why, yeah. I can't help it. You can move practice.
Hey, listen. You know, the minute I went in there, somebody did a good guy, and he says, boy, look how he needs you. That was the only reason.
Joycey. Right about that. The tattoos. Yeah, that's Godzilla, maybe. Yeah, there's Godzilla. Let me see that
Doc, do you recognize that who was on that last page? Pictures through our lives that the girls made up. So anybody would like to look at it, we lay it right here on the table. It's different pictures of Dot and I and the children and the grandchildren and so on.
I didn't see it.
here that we want to say, and we have something that we want to include all of you in. And I think since people are getting restless, we better do it. Okay? You have a song in front of you, and it happens to be Mother's and Dad's song. We thought that love was over.
No, we just couldn't say goodbye.
We just couldn't say goodbye.
I'll have to tell you a little story on that. I had several dates with her, and Roy Kilby and I were going to Montana. And we were going to leave 2 days later. And I told her, and she cried, and I thought, well, maybe I better not go. And so you see what happened because I didn't go. And so then we sang this song, and this has always been mine and her song.
And Harvey's going to play it for us, and we're going to sing the song now. I'll tell you what, we had a terrible time coming up with the sheet music. Harvey didn't have it, and it wasn't in the stores, and, well, when it's as old as that, who could tell, you know. and so we went to Bessie, and... I'm older. And Bessie didn't have it either, but Bessie's sister had it. So we got the sheet music, and Carol and I are going to start out singing it. We'd like you to join us.
Oh, yes, join us.
We're not singers, folks.
We're showing how good you sing.
Memory, because they sang it all through their married life. And so I just wrote what I thought were the correct words.
It's pretty close, and I think you're going to get the message.
A lot of you people know this
And they
song
have to
anyway.
put on their glasses to see it.
Otherwise, I'd have to have somebody stand up there at the end and hold it for me.
That was the intro.
Gosh, you can tell how experienced I am. Stand up, Carol.
Sing this.
Yeah, okay. Okay, tell us
You
when
know
to
it.
start. Now?
I can't say. Before love was over, that we were really true. You said you didn't love me, that we began anew. And you can all believe me, we sure intended to. But we just couldn't say goodbye. Chairs and the sofa, together and we cried. Curtains started waiting for me to come inside. I tell you confidentially, the tears were hard to hide, but we just couldn't say goodbye. The clock was striking 12 o'clock. It smiled on us below. With folded hands, it seemed to say, "Oh, miss you if you go." So he came back and kissed me, and when we looked around, the room was singing love songs and dancing all around. And now we're both so happy because at last we found that we just couldn't say goodbye.
March 10th. No, March 24th.
Well, March 4th.
1910 it was.
March 24th, 1910. Troutdale, Virginia. William Troy. Born. September 20th, 1916. Dorothy, Virginia. Baltimore, Maryland. Dad graduated from high school in 1929. Shortly thereafter moved to Pennsylvania. Mother had to quit in the 8th grade to help work on a farm. One day in September 1932, Leota Alexander, told you I had you in this, didn't I? Wanted to introduce her cousin Dot to a girl she went to school with, Grace Owen. So they went down to the good farm in Mount Nebo and met Grace. And they decided they'd go down to the meadow to pick fox grapes. Well, Bill was in a field plowing, but he got a little nosy. Came down to see what was going on. Wouldn't it be wonderful if God could give us all a meadow to meet our mate? sometime later, Dot was staying all night with Helen Hatfield. And whoever she is. They went to a dance, and who do you think was there? Right. He walked her home, and being that Dot was very, very young, they had to sneak out. I didn't know this until I was 46 years old. You'd be surprised what information I got out of her that she didn't know I was going to write down. Okay, they started going together in March of 1933. They were married at Mount Nebo at the Good Farm, which is where Dad's parents lived. Dot's maid of honor was Dora Trissler, who incidentally couldn't make it this evening. Bill's best man was his brother Worth, who incidentally could make it here this evening. They lived for a while with Grandma and Grandpa Owen. They moved to Rollinsville, lived with Mammy and Pappy Carr. And I think some of you will appreciate this little thing. I told you I had things to say. July 9th, 1935. A peepee, a little girl peepee.
Boy, did she grow.
That was Pappy Carr's words. Wilma Elaine Owen. Dear mother labored from Friday till Tuesday because the dear baby decided to be born feet first.
Oh, no.
And one time I asked Dad how he felt, during this long labor. Of course, she didn't have it like we have it today. She was like at home and no painkillers, nothing, right, Mother?
Right.
He said he never felt so helpless in his entire life.
But I was worth it.
It was worth it.
Who said so?
From Rollinsville, they moved to 429 Church Street in Lancaster. Guess what happens next? Carol and Elizabeth Owen. Mother was expecting this baby for Christmas. However, end of February, Dr. Helm told her she's the only woman he ever knew who carried a baby 11 months. He dressed a mouse, took it to school, and of course when he let it go, it ran up under the teacher's desk, and she's up on top of the desk screaming, and all the girls are screaming. So she went around the class one by one asking who brought the mouse to school. And if my memory serves me, Worth Greer said, well, I think it came out of that crack back there in the corner. And she said, mice don't usually run around with clothes on. So she finally got to Dad and she says, Bill, did you bring this mouse to school? And he said, yes, ma'am. These are stories that I've been told because I think these are before me. Mother and Grandpa Owen used to just carry on all the time, throwing water on each other. So one time... Huh?
I always got the worst end.
She had a bucket of water, and Grandpa was coming toward her, saying, Dot, don't you throw that on me. Dot, don't you dare throw that. She says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to throw it on. He says, don't you dare. Walked right up to her, took the bucket out of her hand, and threw it all over her.
She did.
Then, there's this, I always love this one, Mother, beautiful expressions. There was, out in the wash house, Dad, the light socket. She was fooling around this live light socket. And Dad says, now, Dot, don't fool around that. And she just kept on fooling around. And after a while, she finally put her finger in it and said, Lordy God, he bless us. My mother is the best cook in the world. thought everybody felt that way about their own mother. Remember Uncle Jack would say, I'm so full, but I have to save room for Dot's fruit salad. I was talking to Debbie this week, Debbie Owen. She was out picking peas. I need the recipe in Dot. No, neither do I. We were there Sunday. And Craig came home for dinner that night, and she said, Craig, what would you like to have for dinner? And he said, Aunt Dot's pea pot pie. So I think it's pretty standard. Most people know she's, well, hey, take a look. You know. I've been eating this for a long time.
I could eat it.
Poor Dad. He had to help Wilma with our math.
Well, that was the worst thing I ever had to do.
Okay, this reading problem is, you know, we got the answer. So then the next reading problem came along, and it wasn't worded exactly the same as the reading problem before that, but you did it exactly the same way. So Will and I would say, he says, well, what do you do now? Well, our response was you subtract, multiply, divide, or add. And poor Dad, he was so frustrated. Now, they're all the stories except November 16th, 1954. First grandchild. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight. I know I was Stephen William Morton. We were living in Mount Nebo, and I was in 12th grade, and I came down the lane to Eva's house. And she met me at the door, and she said, hello, Aunt Carol. And I looked around for Carol, and she wasn't. I said, She says, hello, Aunt Carol. I said, well, what did Wilma had a baby boy. And Patrick Noel Martin.
627.
627.
Yeah. 17's Bill.
I have 27 written here. Patrick Noel Martin, second grandchild.
Patsy Pat, that was his
Patsy
name.
Patsy, with puffy cheeks, as you can see in this picture album. We always called him Patsy Patsy. He was so precious. And he still is, believe me. 12/13/1961, Troy Curtis McElhenney came along. I said to Mother, are you disappointed? Because that was her third grandson. She used to carry that little baby around and says, nobody loves him except Mimi. Oh yes, that reminds me. This child was born in December. She gave him prickly heat. He's gonna freeze to death, Carolyn! So I took this child's diaper off and I said, Mother, he has this little rash. Prickly heat. October 24th, 1963, Tara Jo McElhenney. Larry called Mother and said, Dot, she had a girl. Now, Larry, don't you lie to me. She couldn't believe it till she read it in the paper. Finally got a granddaughter. Then she had an extra bonus. September 4th, 1968, Kristen Owen McElhenney. I have such difficulty making my mother pay attention to my kids, I'll tell you. Can't we go down to Mimi's? That's the history. I'm finished. Thank you.
There's not a lot left for me to say except my memories, and I have so many that it would take 3 volumes to write them all down. So I have notes here, and I'm probably going to forget a lot of this stuff. But my first memory is of Church Street. I was born in Rollinsville, but shortly thereafter they moved to Church Street, and I was very, very young. I can still see the house, the inside of the house, and I remember Jiggs, the dog we had there, and I also remember my first punishment. And you folks here are looking at an abused child. Oh. Yes, sirree. I got a whipping. I think I spit on Mother. I should have been probably pounded good. But Dad whipped me around the legs with a white shoestring. It kept stinging it around my legs, and I mean, that's abuse, right? Because I wouldn't say I was sorry. That's a trait that I have not lost. I'm still bullheaded. Ask Bill, he can tell you.
Amen.
He came over here during these proceedings. Did you see him? And he leaned down and he thanked Mother and Dad and everything, and I nudged Dad and I said, he's thanking you for me. And Bill said, no, I'm not. I'm thanking them for them. And Dad said, well, we're thanking him for taking you away from us. Taking you off our hands. You know, we'd had you long enough, and it was time for someone else to have you. And he's had me 30 years. I may make 50, folks. I hope so. Okay, then Mount Nebo's my next memory, and we lived in the little house, and that's when we were down there, and Dad was giving the girls the haircut, and I cried, and they had to make me get my haircut because he shingled it up the back, and I looked like a boy, and I looked like a boy anyway. You know, I was one ugly little kid, and when he shingled my hair up the back, it didn't help things at all. During that period of time when we lived in Mount Nebo, we moved to another house where Dad built a boat in the garage. Nobody knew when he was building it if it was going to float or not, but he had this, I wondered how he was going to get it out of the garage, but he did, and lo and behold, it did float. We didn't sink the first time, and we used to all, I can remember overnight picnics or overnight things on the island down at Peckway. I don't know if anybody else remembers that, but it was a biggie. Boy, we thought we were something. We'd load everything in the boat and go over the island and have bonfires and everything. And we seemed to gather people, because each time we went, we got a few more people that went along, and it was wonderful. Also during that time, I guess it was bicycle time. I remember I got roller skates for Easter, and it's awfully difficult to roller skate in the macadam road, let me tell you. It's hard on the hands and the knees, and the rollers don't go, and nothing like, you know, they just don't move. Mother at that period of time whistled everywhere she went. I mean, she whistled. I don't know if she whistles anymore, but I can remember her whistling, going down the road from Aunt May's to the little house we lived in down the road. Okay, Dad got Carol and I bicycles. Now, we had some rough times financially, not any other way, but financially, and he used to buy used bicycles, but we didn't know it because, my goodness, he painted them up and pounded them out and whatever, and he taught me how to ride a bicycle, and I kept saying to him, don't let go, and he's holding the seat and running down the road after me, and I kept saying, please, Dad, don't let go, and he had let go about 3 blocks back. I didn't know it, you know. As soon as I found out he wasn't holding on to the back of me, I wrecked. Now, wrecking on a macadam road's not fun either. About that time, Mother wanted a new breakfast set, so some of you are going to remember that she raised a pig. Remember? And this pig was going to have babies, and Mother was going to sell the babies. Piglets, I think they're called. And she was going to sell these and just make a fortune and buy herself a new breakfast suit. Well, good heavens. The mother died giving birth to the little babies. And here Mother is, bawling her heart out, carrying these little pigs all over the country, trying to give them away, because the mother was dead and she couldn't, I don't know, there were 14 or something. There were a bunch of them. Well, you can't, you know, hand feed 14 of them, so she just went all over and gave them all away and cried, and there went the breakfast set. I had a habit of picking up strays. Mother,
You can say that again.
yeah.
You only kept one of them, though.
I used to bring everybody home for dinner, you know, Charlie Creasy and I don't remember who all else, but any
Junior Doherty.
Junior Doherty, yeah, and any poor soul, Neil will remember that. Any poor soul that I felt needed a good meal, I took home to lunch with me, and Mother fed him, and that's how we got Bill. We got him hooked. I took him home to dinner, and Mother says, oh, he loves to eat. He'll eat anything. We'll keep him, and we did. You know, we kept him for 30 years. Okay. Now I'm into strays, but it's cats. I'm still collecting strays. I have 3 cats. I had 4 at one time, and Mother has 11, and I'd like to have them all. We can't catch them, or I'd take them home with me. Bill keeps hoping they stay wild, so we can't take them. But they're under the house, and they won't come out, and when they see you, they run, and that's just as well. Christmases were wonderful. We didn't always have a lot of money, but Mother and Dad managed to see that Santa Claus came to us royally every year. Mother made clothes for us. Dad made doll furniture for us. Mother made little blankets for our doll babies and all that sort of thing. And Christmases were wonderful. They always were. They still are. I can remember a time when Mother cashed in savings bonds to buy us Easter outfits, but we had Easter outfits. I remember Holloway Beach. We used to gather up all strays again, and we all took them to Holloway Beach, Mother and Dad, and a picnic, and all our friends, and it was almost a Sunday occurrence in the summertime. I remember the Teen Timers Club. I don't know how many of you remember that. I remember Dad made me a pair of stilts, had a wash props, and for a time I wouldn't go anywhere without my stilts. I mean, I took them to the store, to the bus stop, wherever I could get these 2 wash poles, I took them. And I don't know if I wanted to be tall or what it was, but stilts. I can remember my first prom gown. Mother took me to buy a prom gown. I was invited to a prom. I don't know why he invited me, but I was invited to a prom, and it had to be demure, right? And we got this nice little aqua prom gown, and it had to be demure, and I said, looking back, it could have been cut to my knees, and nobody would have noticed the thing, you know. I've changed a little bit since, but at that time I looked like a boy. And, but it was a nice prom gown. Then when I got to be a senior, I got a strapless jogger with, gosh, still didn't have anything to hold it up, but fortunately they had bones and stays and everything. Okay. Dad taught me to drive. First night out. Now this is the most patient man. We'd be going, he took me through town the first night. I don't know where he got the guts to do that. And right through the center of town, and he said to me, "Now honey, you better turn to the left or you're going to hit this car over here." You know, I'd have been swearing and say, "Get your wheel to the left." So we go out of town and we're going down toward Linden, for those of you who know Linden. First night out, and I looked over and he's sleeping. I almost wrecked the car. I said, "Dad!" And I had never driven before that. No, you have to be 16, okay? Looked over, and there he is snoring, going down through the center of town. After I was married and had Stephen and everything, times were really tough, and every week we had care packages. Mother came loaded down, man, with frozen food and vegetables and clothes for Stephen and whatever she could think that I needed. Now, I got to tell you, to this day, she does never come to my house empty-handed. It's frozen stuff, it's jelly, it's whatever she can think that we'll enjoy. There are so many things, but I want to touch on recently. I stopped working. I haven't been working since November, and I've been able to spend some time with him that I couldn't do before. We took a trip to Florida to see Aunt Stella and Aunt May, Carol and Mother and Dad and I, and it was wonderful. It's the best time I've had. It was a little rough driving down there with Dad. He's kind of...
It was rough for them. How do you think I made out with 3 women?
We had the best time. We sang rounds. Well, we sort of sang rounds because Mother is lousy at rounds. And we never got through the whole thing because we giggled and laughed and everything. And then we got down there with Aunt May and Aunt Stella and I. As a child, I was very close to Aunt May because she used to come to my house and regularly beat Neil the whole way home up the hill with a switch across his back. I can remember that. Remember our playhouse in the chicken house, Neil? Remember the one in the milk shed where we made poor Johnny Wolfle be a mailman? We wouldn't let him play with us, and he just bugged us to death. So we finally said, "Well, fine, you can be the milkman, the mailman. You only come once a day." Well, came about every 5 minutes. But we had a wonderful time in Florida. We knitted Afghans, and Mother is, heavy into Afghans, and so am I. And, they pampered us, and it was just wonderful, and I'm so grateful that we had those 2 weeks. And lately I've been able to spend time with Mother and Dad, just me. And I'll call and I'll say, I'm coming down, and Dad will say, oh, do come down and we'll play. And I go down, and that's what we do. We play. They pamper me, and it's like, I feel like I've done them such an honor by going down there. That's how they make me feel. Like I'm the most special person, and of course they've always liked me better than Carol.
I think it was a big mistake for her to learn to crochet. She's sitting there one day crocheting, and I said, what are you going to do today? She said, I'm just going to sit here and crochet and let my house rot.
But anyway, I just feel privileged that I have this whole family, and Mother and Dad especially, because they are such fun to be with. Bill enjoys going down there if we have a choice where to go. Well, let's go down to see your Mother and Dad because they're fun. They're not old fogies. We enjoy being with them. We laugh, we carry on, and it's just one last story I wanted to tell you. When I had my tonsils out, I was 17, and I took Mother to the hospital with me thinking she was going to take care of me and lend me moral support. She sat by the bed and giggled and laughed and howled and carried on. I said, Mother, I want comfort. And she said, I can't help it. And then she'd go off in another tangent and just laugh. And we were both nervous, and I said if I had a pencil, I'd write in the will, and she got all hysterical, and I said if the bed wasn't too high, I'd get down on my knees and pray, and but it all worked out fine. She took good care of me when I went home because she sent Carol to the store for ice cream, and Carol came back with butter pecan. I don't have a lot more to say. I've occupied enough of your time because we have other people here, don't we, Patrick?
I guess we do, yeah.
And I want to thank you all for coming and celebrating with Mother and Dad. I hope they're here for another 50 more, both of them, because I'm so proud of them and love them to death, and they know that. Thanks.
Given that I'm only 25 years old, that comes out to about half as long as they've been married, and I don't have that much to say. But I think the first recollection I have of anything is probably when Mom and Dad were, I guess, buying their first house. Might have been the second, I don't know, on Emerald Drive. And my brother and I stayed down with me and Grandpa. I was in kindergarten, and when I could get there, and Steve was in 5th grade. And that's really about the first thing I can really recall. Spent a lot of time down there and getting me ready. This is something I've always heard about, and I remember it. Getting me ready for kindergarten was ridiculous. I'm still the same way. I get up at 9 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock for the afternoon kindergarten class, and it would take me hours to get ready. I'd put my shorts on, I'd go walk down, play with Cliff and Kim and Craig, and or up the hill to Craig Brown, and then I'd come back down and get my t-shirt on, watch some cartoons, and eat Fig Newtons that Pappy would give me. The thing I remember about Pappy, he'd always have his Fig Newtons. And I'd get to school. I remember being sheer terror in kindergarten, but
Patrick.
you know, I just tame it a little bit. One instance I can remember in particular, Grandpa always had horses, and there were about 4 of us. I think it was Dad and Steve and I and Grandpa went out a horseback ride through 7 runs. And Grandpa insisted that I saddle up the horse myself, and he showed me how to do it, and, you know, pulling the belly strap real tight, and I did it as much as my little arms could muster. Got the horse all saddled up. You know, we're riding out through 7 runs. Well, my horse, I don't recall which one it was, decided it needed a drink, and it leaned down to take a drink. Well, I went right along with it, down the saddle and all, right off over the neck of that horse, landing in that water, and it was like an October day, and it was cold. And I was crying my eyes out, and they said, it took me a while to get over it, and he said, A couple years from now, you'll laugh at this. So I didn't laugh at for a long time. As a matter of fact, I had...
Grandpa just amazes me. I always knew he was a carpenter all his life, but I never really had that much of an opportunity to be with him and see him work until that week I worked with him. 75 years old, and he was working circles around me. You know, he'd just stand back with a cigarette and look up there and just play around in his mind what he was going to do. Never needed any measurements or anything, and he took the time to really explain to me what was going on. He'd say, then when he wanted me to do something, he never knew my name. He would say, Steve, Pat, Sam, or George, or Troy.
Had to start at the top and come down to get to Troy.
Absolutely amazing man. Tara and Kristen and I, we've only had the opportunity to have one set of grandparents, and with the set that we have, we don't need another set, because they're the equivalent of about 5 sets, and wouldn't trade them for the world. Love them both dearly.
Oh, you're cute. You're on camera.
You never could tell them what you wanted, because if you did, they'd get it for you. I remember Grandpa made Mom a little basket out of peach seed. And I collect miniatures, and I just love that little peach seed. So I went down and said, Grandpa, I really like that. 10 minutes later, he came back with the little peach seed, made into a basket for me. And then about a week later, when I came down, he had another little basket made. I'm not sure what kind of seed this is, but I just love little things, especially because he's so creative and can carve, and he's just so wonderful at doing things like that. And Mimi, whenever she makes something, she says, I have to make it for Tara Joey. She calls me Tara Joey. Like baby quilts, pillows, Afghans. I was the first one to have an Afghan from her. I mean, she made it for, I guess, Mama, but no matter what she makes, she always says that she has to make one for me and Kristen. Like I said, you can't even talk to them on the phone and tell them what you like or you want, because if you get down there the next weekend, they'll have it for you. And every weekend, like when Chris and I would get down there and visit, Mimi would always have something to eat that we were like. If it wasn't pea pot pie or some form of pot pie, it would be baked macaroni and cheese, scalloped potatoes, chocolate rice pudding. Or Mimi would bring scalloped potatoes just for me. And they're just such wonderful people. Not so broken up over it. Like Troy said, I wouldn't trade them for the world. And, we only have one set, but that's all we need, because they're so special. And I love them both so much.
I'd really like to have a Jaguar escape.
What? After all of these, I'm the last one to talk. I'm getting like Tara. Me and Grandpa just, you can't explain how good, they're just the best grandparents you could ever want. And I remember we always used to go down, when they lived in Mount Nebo, I used to stay down with them a lot, and every time Grandpa would come home from work, they had this orange and white chair, and I'd always hide behind it and wait for him to come in, and he'd always look for me, because he knew I'd be behind. It would never fail. I'd always pick that place. I'd hide behind it every time. And so I came home and I jumped out at him. And I just remember that house is so wonderful, because I'd always have things to play with. I remember this gigantic doll they had for me. It had legs about 10 feet long. I know you probably remember. And I remember just being Mimi, and Tara was saying how Mimi always makes things for Tara. Well, every time she makes something for Tara, she'll make something for me right afterwards, because she knows, she can't spoil us enough. And like she makes Afghans for us, and She always asks me what color Afghan I want, and I can never decide, and she's patient with me. She doesn't, you know, I still haven't decided what color Afghan I want. She made me this all different colored one, and I said, well, I wasn't sure I wanted that, so she's going to wait and see what colors I want. And I had so many things to say, and I can't remember. Oh, that's right. I had this story. I remember it was when the house in Mount Nebo, and I was sitting in Mimi's room in her dressing table, and she had just got done putting on lipstick, and I guess Grandpa was in the room too, and I said, Mimi, Grandpa, I never ever saw you kiss. So then they kissed for me. I used to think that was the way you had to express your love, but Mimi, Grandpa, you don't have to express your love by kissing, because you're just so wonderful, and all the love over these years you've shared with us it couldn't be duplicated by anyone else. I love you both very much.
Well, you can tell these two don't get much love. Nobody likes them. Isn't it sad? Gosh, they've spent a whole life being hated. Now, isn't that something? I don't know if there's anybody else here who'd like to say anything or have some memories. I think maybe a few of you.
Yeah, some stories I know about. In his young days, when we used to go even out on a bridge at night and have a party.
We put a car across the road at both ends of the bridge and having to dance on the bridge, and the sheriff come along.
We thought we were in trouble, and he said, you know, he said, I believe I'd put a lantern out there so somebody might run into those cars and get hurt. He drove 5 miles up around another way to go home and then asked us to move the car.
Nobody know anything about it. We just meet. You want to go? And everybody was going then.
Was a preacher and wanted to preach a sermon.
You be careful.
I'd take Longfellow's Psalm of Life. And I won't repeat it all, but there's one verse in there. The lives of great men all remind us we could make our lives sublime, and in departure leave behind us footprints on the sand of time. My brother Bill left a lot of footprints, and me, being a little younger, tried to follow them. I'll give you a few examples. Back in 19 and 20, in the early 20s, Barn Lewis, a cousin of ours, was living with us at West Jefferson and going to school. He was about Bill's age. And of course, everywhere they went, right behind them, right in those footsteps all the time. Of course, they were in high school and I was just starting to school. They wanted to get away from me. So down the hill from the little gray house in West Jefferson and across the road and through a fence, I followed them down the hill and into the road, and Bill got a hold of me and helped me, and Barn crawled through the fence. Then Barn reached through and helped me, and Bill crawled through the fence and shoved me back and run. I went back to the house crying, but that didn't deter me at all. A few years later in Lansing, North Carolina, Bill and I guess Bernard and Jim Cox and several of the older boys, I wanted to follow them again, right in those footsteps, wherever they went. Down in Lansing, they went down to Frank Clark, and his brother Ray had a garage, and they had a little adding machine there, and you could hit the numbers and pull the handle down on it. They got me to doing this, and oh, I got real interested. Next thing I looked up, Bill and his boyfriends were gone. Couldn't find them again. That wasn't all. A few years later, Bill came to Pennsylvania one summer, worked up here. And a year later, in 1929, the whole family followed in Bill's footsteps and came to Pennsylvania. Went to a farm in Mount Nebo. Now, this is getting up to about 1930. We had a team of horses, Bob and Charlie, and we bought a little team of mules that come out of the mines up here in upper Pennsylvania. Never been on the farm. Bill took the horses and, as normal, plowed a good furrow and really knew what he was doing. I took out after him with these little mules. Never been on the farm, and I couldn't plow much. Well, it took me till lunchtime that day, all morning, just trying to get those mules to follow. Trying to follow his footsteps. And boy, that was a job. I could give many more footsteps. But I think I'll just move on up to June the 22nd, 1934. And boy, he planted a footstep there that I stopped and looked at it. And I thought, I've always been so close, the footsteps didn't get cold till I stepped in them. But this one stopped me. I thought, no, I can't take that one. That's too big. For 6 years, I looked at that footstep. I studied it. I thought about it. I looked at what he had got. I thought, well, if I could find a wife that was as good as the one he got, if I could get along as well as Bill and Dot, maybe it wouldn't be too bad. So 6 years later, I stepped into that final footstep and got my marriage too. And I've got 6 more years to go till I can celebrate my 50th anniversary. And I want to say to these grandchildren and all these young people, and maybe the older ones too, I'll tell you, Bill Owen set some mighty nice footsteps to follow. Step in them, follow him. I know of no better way to go. I'm proud of my brother Bill and his lifestyle.
Yeah, I know a lot of stories. I don't know if I have any that are fit. I said, well, clean them up, May. So, did you find one, May?
We've had sad times together and happy times together. And Wilma told the story that I had planned to tell about the little pigs. When I saw Dot coming across the meadow crying, I thought something had happened to Bill or Dot, the children one. And I said, what's wrong, Dot? And she told me. So I put my arms around her and I said, well, we'll go back to the old saying, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. But I would like to relate, one Christmas, my oldest son and my daughter got roller skates for Christmas. Well, Dot and I had never had roller skates on. So Howard and Bill put the roller skates on us, and we were going to roller skate in the big kitchen down there. So when Dot stood up, her feet flew out from her. She hit the sewing machine, which was sitting there, and we thought she was dead. From that time on, I have never had roller skates on, and I hope that Dot has. But I dearly love her.
I remember most of those things, Wilma. That must tell me something, you know. It seems as though I've grown up for a long time with that family. But specifically, I want to comment because Mimi and Smokey and my wife and myself got into a big project. We built a cabin together. And a lot of the traits, a lot of the personality traits and the strengths of Uncle Bill came out in many of the things and the stories that were told tonight. The one that I want to bring out is the fact that Bill is a teacher. You know, Bill taught me how to use my hands and how much fun it is to work with your hands. And when Wilma told about him teaching her to drive, Bill is a very, very patient person. I can remember we were building the cabin and there was a problem with the, fitting something together, and here I am, a young snot brat, and I'm telling Bill exactly how we ought to be doing it. And finally, Bill just kept saying to me, well, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. So patient, if I would have put myself in his shoes, we'd have had a terrible confrontation.
Teacher, I remember him as a Sunday school teacher as well. I guess I'd have to say Bill taught us patience. He taught me to work with my hands. Mimi taught us what good food's all about and how to play canasta. And we are fond memories, so our love is with you.
Wilma cheats.
Yeah, she even tried to...
I even caught my own partner cheating.
Tried to bag off
the queen of spades and the jack of hearts is peanut.
She says, well, if you don't like that, how do you like this? And she lays down a run of diamonds with an ace of hearts.
Yeah.
Well,
She didn't get by with it, but she tried.
You must have learned it somewhere, and Neil just said your dad was a good teacher.
One time, Mother and Dad were away, and he said he wanted to drive a car, and I told him couldn't have it. So we got into a little squabble about it, and he smacked me. And I fell over. We were right in front of a bed, and I fell over on the bed. It didn't hurt me really. He just smacked me on the face a little bit. But I made like I was dead. Scared Bill half to death then. He thought he'd really. And well, there were so many things that I remember when we were growing up, but one thing I definitely remember with Bill and Dot was we went out to the West Coast with them. And we had one wonderful time. We just had the greatest time in the world. Trips we'll never forget. And they were just so great to travel with. And we'd get a little motel and we'd sit every night and play cards, and then we'd get up and start the next day, and we just had a wonderful time. So they've been great friends as well as relatives too, so they just couldn't be beat.
Quite a fourth down the line, so after May and Mary, I guess I better have something to say too. Bill, just being a little bit younger than I, should have been a little of my care and concern, but he was always big brother to me and looked after me and took care of me as we were kids growing up, and that's gone on until this day. He got lucky enough to get Dot in on the service too, because she's been done more things for me and been a great help to me. And even just this last year, she and Bill came down, as you referred to, and Bill built some bookshelves for me when I was having a hard time in my life and really didn't have money to furnish an apartment. I moved into an apartment, and he showed up to build me a table and a sink cupboard, and helped me pad some wooden orange cases for stools. And all these years he's been there to help me when I needed help, and he and Dot have certainly been a great inspiration to me in their life, and I look up to them now as though they were the older ones, not old like I am.
We were little, every time we got a sniffle, is a dose of castor oil. That was Mother's remedy. Well, Stella, she didn't seem to mind taking castor oil so much, but I didn't like to take it, so Mother's going to give me the Stella dose of castor oil one time, and Stella, she just drank hers right down, you know, and I was stalling around, and Mother pleaded with me for a while, and I wouldn't take it, and so she said, well, I'm going out and get a switch, and I'm going to switch you if you don't take that castor oil. So she went to get the switch, and when she went to get the switch, Stella drank my castor oil. Mother couldn't understand why the castor oil was severe on Stella and didn't affect me.
There's one other little thing I want. We were beginning to be pretty infirm about going up and down steps and so forth. Worth and I decided one day that we'd put a rail on both sides of the stairs for Mother and Daddy to be able to go up and down the steps. So we figured, and we had it all figured out, how we were going to cobble up some sort of rail for them to hold on to. Didn't say a word. And in about an hour, I guess, he came back and he had a rail, and he had the fixtures to put it on with, and he just went to work and put the rail on, walked out, and still didn't say it. So that's the way he's always been.
He ran me up and down the steps and up and down the steps, up the front steps and down the back for about 15 minutes one time looking for his wife. And I couldn't find her. Of course, she wasn't there. He didn't have a wife, but he sure had
me running up and down the steps. I was very gullible, and I believed everything he told me, and he was the best storyteller that ever was. I didn't have money to go to movies, but Bill went to movies, and he come home, and it was just as good as going. In fact, I think it was better than going himself, because he didn't forget anything. He put everything in that happened, and it was just as good as going to the movies yourself. I remember when you girls were born, and Wilma, you said you were ugly. They called you the love bug. I know. You couldn't have been ugly. You were beautiful to them, I know. And then Carolyn came along and she cried, and they called her Little Tommy Tucker Sings Free Supper. I remember Halloween parties in Mardickville. I remember the picnics on the island. In fact, one of the picnics down there was when Dick and I were hunting for you in an airplane. And round the island we went looking for the kids down there having the picnic, and that's when I got sick, and that's the only airplane Dick ever had to wash out. Had to wash it. My life is much richer because of having a brother like Bill and a sister-in-law like that.
My name's Craig, and I don't know how it ever came about, but Uncle Bill always called me Sam. And it was always, Sam, did you see my saw? Or Sam, did you see my hammer? And we'd go hunt it and find it. Aunt Dot, she was always, I think she was afraid I was going to waste away to nothing, because she always saw that I had food to eat. And Aunt Dot's pea putt pie is out of this world. That's the spring of the year, fresh peas. You could always count on having a pot of Aunt Dot's fresh pea putt pie. Uncle Bill never cared much for leftovers and sandwiches. Aunt Dot always saw that I had stuff to make sandwiches out of, because that was my favorite. I think I had one hollow leg and the other didn't have anything in it. In the wintertime, Uncle Bill used to call and ask me and the neighbor boy to come up, and we'd play cards. Pulled out the driveway and squealed the tires the whole way up the road. She says, that Gary Farmer, he's going to kill somebody with that car. It wasn't too much longer after that, I got a new car, backed out, and squealed the tires up the road, and she says, don't that new car of Craig's have a lot of power? To say I'm proud that Aunt Dot and Uncle Bill are my aunt and uncle.
For my wife and I for about 20-some years. My wife used to work with Dottie in Hamilton. First time we ever met him, Dottie said, would you come down for a corn roast? And my wife came home and said this to me, and I said, well, I don't know the people. Oh, you'll like them, she said. They're nice. Dottie's real nice. And she said, well, we'll meet her husband anyway. So we goes down for the corn roast and down to Dottie's home. And they were there at the time, so they said, now we're going to the corn roast. So I thought, where are we going for the corn roast? Well, we started heading down the road, and here we go to Bill's home down there, and they had a nice place down there, a swimming pool, and oh, it was just lovely. It was a lovely place. And I thought, well, this is wonderful, having a corn roast. You do have good friends, Irene. But what I really wanted to say, really, when I got up here, I don't know too much about Dottie and Bill, more than they are good friends. But they do have a nice family, and I met their family. And their grandchildren, I know them when they were all small babies. And I think they're a lovely family. And all your things that you have said about your grandparents tonight made tears in my eyes at times. And it touched me deeply in my heart. And I know there's a lot of friends here who feel the same way as I do. And I'm thankful.
I lived down on Mum and Grandpa's farm. Well, that was a proud moment for me. But when I had my Bobby, Dot and Bill and my husband Bill and I lived at Mardickville in the next apartment to each other. And I went over about 5 o'clock in the morning, and Bill was getting ready to go to work. And Bill said, what's the matter, Fan? He always called me Flapper Fanny. And so I said, Bill, I think I have to go to the hospital. And I said, better call Dot. He said, well, Fan, he said, you better wait a little while, because he says, you're not that much in a hurry. And I said, well, I suppose I could wait a little while. So I went back over to the house, and then, of course, Dot's bedroom had a door leading into my one bedroom, and the girls' bedroom led into my other bedroom. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go back down and go back up the mother steps. I'm just going to go across. So I went across, and I said, Dot, I said, I think I better go. think you better take me to the hospital. Well, she was in such a rush that day, and she took me into the hospital, and her and Bill were sitting out in the hall, and Bill said, well, she's not going to have that baby. We might as well go out to eat. So I get up, and she said, let me pull my slip down. She had a thin dress on. She looked, she well, I don't even have a slip on. That's how excited she got, right? And then Carolyn was saying about the mouse. Well, when we lived next door there, why, they had a trapdoor to go down the cellar, and she said, Fanny, she said, and she's scared to death of mice. So she said to me, she said, Fanny, she said, would you go down, I'll tell you what, I'll give you something if you go down in the cellar and bring me some fruit or green beans or something up out of the cellar. She wanted to give me some every time I got them for her because she was scared of the rats. Well, we had a lot of rats in Martyville, I'll tell you. But, and I went down that cellar quite often for her. And, well, we never sewed much together like the rest of them did, but she liked to sew and I liked to sew too. And we always had a lot of interest. And we both worked at Hamilton Watch too. And well, Bill helped to teach me to drive the car too. I was about 12 years old when I learned too.
He's a hell of a teacher.
Yeah, and well, he was all right. He was all right, and he still is all right. And Dot, you're all right too, and I love you too.
Now, he's a wonderful teacher. He really is a wonderful teacher. He's very patient. He never gets excited, and so forth and so on. But I'll tell you what, he drives with one arm out the window and the other arm on the steering wheel, and he jerks you from one side of the car to the other side of the car. And I didn't know truly until I learned to drive myself that when you applied the brakes that you threw, I thought you threw everybody on the floor. I mean, he stands on the brakes. Man, and everybody's on the floor. You know, and I thought that's how it was. So he's a better teacher than a driver, let me tell you. We wouldn't let him drive. Tell him. We went to Florida. Mother and Carol and I drove the whole way down and the whole way back. Now, Mother's a wonderful driver, but Dad just is the worst backseat driver in the world. He picks on her. She's not doing it right. She isn't passing when she should. She's going too fast, or she's going too slow, or she's in the wrong lane, or whatever. He didn't yell at me. I backed over several curbs with his car, and he didn't yell at me, but I think he took it all out on Mother.
You can do it. You can do it. And you do it. You try and you do it. And there's a lot of things that he's been saying up there ever since he's been up there, and I don't think he repeated it anymore in the stores any more than one time. He just keeps telling the stories or saying the verses. He even quotes the Bible. When you have troubles, I always run over and ask him. He sat there and talked for hours, and down to the Bible he even gets to me. And I think, I don't know, he's told a lot of stories, but he also says poems. He knows a lot of poems. And I think he has one special poem, and I think, if he will, would you recite it?
Oh, which one are you talking
Just say one or two or three.
The she things. I have a favorite one. I do too. The she things. I want you to say that. That I love. Stand up and say it.
I don't know how
I don't like that one.
I don't know how come I wrote this, but I did, and so I'll say it for you. Sharecropping in the East was a mighty tough life. Just couldn't make enough to keep me and my wife, so I took an old Jersey cow and an old spotted hog and a Shanghai rooster and an old yellow dog, a pair of worn-out mules and a pregnant wife, and I headed west to start a new life. I'd been on the road about a week maybe, and wholly to lead 'em, my wife had a baby. Then the cow had a calf, and I thought I'd have to give up when that hog had pigs and the dog had a pup. And the old she mule, she tried her darndest to die. I sat down on a log and I started to cry, and that old Shanghai rooster flew up in a tree and started to crow. I thought he was laughing at me, so I picked up my rifle and I brought him down, condemning his soul before he hit the ground. With all these new babies, we had to go slow, so we got caught in the cold winter snow. Well, we battled the rain, the wind, and the sleet. With the worn-out wagon and the mule's sore feet, we finally made it to Oregon, but I don't know how. But the day that we got there, I made a vow. If ever again I decided to roam, I was going to leave all the she things at home. He's gone, but still in our memory is that little face so dear. It was too small, too sweet, too tender, this sin-cursed world of faith. So God took it to dwell with the angels by the power of his saving grace. Now we must live on in sorrow till still grows our sad heart. Then we'll meet that little darling in heaven where we'll never have to part.
Since I was the fault of them two getting together.
Yeah, you was the downfall.
This is Leota Alexander, for those people who do not know.
Oh.
Well, it was Alexander.
Well, Dot and I have lived together. Dot's, you're just a year or so older than I.
2, I believe.
And Dot and I have played, have worked together on Grandpa Carr's farm. Never in our life have we ever said words or an argument. Isn't that right, Dot? And she's one of the best cousins I ever could have. But she did fall in love with Bill Owen when she saw him.
Oh, look who it was.
So, and then when Dot and Bill moved in Martyville, we lived in Martyville too. So Dot could make the best macaronis, and remember how we used to make good macaroni and cheese, and how we used to sit down and try to make dress patterns for Edna Mae and Wilma so that they would have skirts and things alike to go to school. So I can just only remember good things. And I know Dot and Bill's always there if I want to ask them anything or anything. And I love them both, and I love their children, and I love their grandchildren. So, thank you. Thank you.
Make a long story short, you know about Dot's cooking. When Carol and I got married, we bought a home here this past March 2 years ago. And in order to have the whole family together, why, we had to move down in the basement. Bill's quite an engineer, I'll never forget this. And made a bedroom down here for Troy. It was like something out of a Better Homes and Garden. Bill engineered the whole thing, you know. He just, they're both pure gold. This way, have the whole family underneath one roof. It's just unreal. You know, they're the greatest in-laws in the world. That's all there is to it.
If you never had a friend, Grandpa would always be the one to come to play with. And just Pat was saying how he used to make the mouse go up your leg. He used to do that to Tara and I too. And he always used to play with Tara and I remember Tara and I used to watch Scooby-Doo. I don't know if anyone ever saw Scooby-Doo, but there's this one episode and it was about, there's this vampire and he's a really mean vampire. And this is stupid, but no, it isn't. The one guy called the vampire Gramps the Vamps, and ever since then, because Grandpa always used to tell my vampire bites with his whiskers. That's our nickname for Gramps now. And we always call him that. We sign his cards, you know, to Gramps the Vamps and Mimi. And Mimi's really special too because she'll anytime, like I'm a very picky eater. And she might make a meal and I might not like anything. Like we'll call her on the phone and she'll tell us what she's having. But as soon as I get down there, she'll always have something I like. Like she makes the best macaroni and cheese in the world. Her noodles are just, I love noodles so much. And Grandpa always has to take the credit for making the food. He always says he makes the food. And me special color is purple and she always has purple on, so I will a little bit of purple for her today because I love her so much and I love Gramps too. I want to ask something. I don't want to stand stand up because I don't want to fall and get hysterical again, but Mimi always says she never cooks enough. She'll have 20 things or more on the table and she'll go, oh my gosh, I don't have enough now. I'll tell you one thing, we get away from the table and when you get down there you have to wear like a blouse or top over your blue jeans because when you get away from the table you have to like run to the couch, unbutton your blue jeans and unzip the zipper so all the fat can hang out because you're so stuffed when you're done at her table. And she always says, oh, I don't have enough, and she always says too much because we're so full.
All of you coming out, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And you know, the button's just about flying off of my shirt of all the praise and all that I have received, but I don't think I deserve any of it. I always lived under the philosophy, if you meet your fellow man halfway, he'll go the other half. And that's the philosophy I've always lived by. I've tried to meet my fellow man just halfway. That's all that's necessary. And I have so many good friends here. I look around and see the faces of the campers down in the campground, and you can't imagine how long the last 2 weeks in the fall or the spring is before the campers start coming back to White Oak Campground. We look forward to them coming so much, it just seems that the time will never pass. And I want to thank you all, and I want to draw your attention to this. This is a token of love from our friends at White Oak. The campers all went together, and they gave us this. They also gave us, as Bessie
A gold brick, Dad.
called it, a gold brick. It's a gold pan full of $50. That's from our friends at camp. Now, I'm sorry that we don't have time and can't open all the presents, but I want you all to know that they'll be on display down at our place, and any and all of you is welcome to come and see us. And thank you all for coming.